Good afternoon and welcome to the Federal Executive Forum celebrating 19 years of profiling excellence in government IT mission programs. I'm Luke McCormack. During today's show, we will discuss best practices with artificial intelligence and machine learning strategies and programs in the federal government. With me on today's show are Randy Soper, Chief of Artificial Intelligence at the IRS, Dave Salvanini, Chief Data Officer and Chief Artificial Intelligence Officer at NASA, Jeff Smith, Deputy Director, Certification and Testing, Office of the National Coordinator for Health Information Technology, and Assistant Secretary for Technology Policy, Adam Clater, Chief Architect at Red Hat, Rajmi Mathur, Managing Director, AI and Data at Deloitte, Nick Saki, Principal Technologist, U.S. Federal at Pure Storage. We are talking about AI and machine learning. We've had a executive order out from the White House just about a year ago. A lot of direction given to the different departments and agencies in regards to your governance structure, identifying an AI officer, ensuring that you have a good inventory of your use cases, et cetera. Randy, we're going to start with you. A lot of different activity, I'm sure hundreds of use cases at the IRS. Can you give us a top line as to what you're spending your time on to bring us across the top, state of the state, artificial intelligence at the IRS?
Yeah, so thanks, Luke. I really appreciate being invited to be on the program and share with you all. So at the IRS, of course, we have the Inflation Reduction Act funding that's been given to us to be able to provide improved services to the American taxpayer. That's ignited a lot of energy in what we're doing in terms of, especially in information technology modernization, which is where my focus is. The IRS has a long history of being able to do data science and deliver models. A lot of that work has been sort of boutique and very focused. And what we're trying to do is to be able to improve our ability to do artificial intelligence at scale. And so a lot of our energy right now is how to make sure that our governance processes, you mentioned the executive order on artificial intelligence, so trying to make sure that our governance processes are comprehensive and effective. So part of that means making sure that all of our different governance processes across artificial intelligence and information technology and privacy are all working well together to be able to deliver the risk assurance that we need. And then also trying to bring technology capabilities to the data scientists to be able to get them the right tools they need, the right data that they need to be able to operate effectively and efficiently to solve all the problems that we're trying to solve for the Inflation Reduction Act. So that's where a lot of our energy is right now. I'll add to that that the commissioner has asked us to look at what is the potential of generative AI. So there's huge energy right now in the IRS looking at experimentation around generative AI, trying to understand what it is good for and how we can fit it into the things that we're trying to deliver with artificial intelligence.
Fantastic. And I think the Reduction Act came at a fantastic time for you all to sort of fuel that capability, along with the guidance from OMB, right? And I think about the use cases in regards to customer experience, et cetera. Perhaps we'll hear one of those in further questioning. Dave.
Yes, good morning. How are you today?
Spending a lot of energy at NASA. You all are landing spacecraft on Mars and launching helicopters from them autonomously. There has got to be a tremendous amount of AI going on across NASA.
There is, and thank you for that recognition. So I would say that NASA does have a long history of working with AI. Of course, AI is not new. It's been in the field of computer science for many, many years. And we leverage AI in many embedded systems across NASA. So one such system, for example, is the Perseverance rover that traverses the surface of Mars, but has an AI capability on board that helps it avoid hazards as it navigates across the surface. So that, of course, is a very specialized use case, a very embedded use case. Other examples are a lot of the science work that we do with climate modeling. Detection of algae blooms in oceans, detection of tree crowns as it relates to new forests that are emerging across the globe because of climate change, looking at other trends that may lead to landslides or other hazardous weather conditions and alike, understanding our Earth. In the area of deep exploration, we have AI that is helping us identify objects in space, things like exoplanets and even planets in far-reaching solar systems. So AI, of course, is very good at detecting signal and noise, and we certainly benefit from that capability. And we found that the profiling that used to be performed by humans that can now be performed by AI, where the AI is actually more reliable and certainly faster. So, and then one other example I'll give is in the area of engineering, systems engineering and mechanical engineering in particular. We're seeing AI use in the design of structural components, for example. And we've actually done a comparison of a human design structural component as compared to an AI design structural component. And it's quite interesting to see the differences in how the AI will design something. You know, the human version is very linear, very, right angles and such. The AI design component almost looks skeletal in nature with interesting curves, and the elements of the structural member are sized appropriate to the loading. So, but what's interesting about that, the design of the structural component can be conducted in a quarter of the time. And of course, from a risk management perspective, we think about both components being tested equally. So the risk of the AI design component as compared to the human design component is there is none, because they both get tested with the same level of rigor. As far as where I spend my time and what's different, of course, generative AI is what's changing the landscape, and really thinking about how do we equip the workforce. And when I say equip the workforce with the knowledge and understanding of, let's say, how to prompt generative AI for benefit, but also what some of the downside of that is. Thinking about creatives and the use of some of the graphic product capabilities like DALL-E, for example, but also making them aware of some of the potential copyright infringement that can occur, some of the inaccuracies in some of the graphics. So a lot of my time right now is really spent on policy, on guidelines, on equipping the workforce with the knowledge, but also inspiring the workforce so that they feel free to go out, learn, innovate, and find ways to use some of the newer, some of the benefits, of course, of generative AI.
Delicate balance there with providing them some incredible power of this technology, along with making sure there's good guardrails in place for all kinds of obvious reasons. Jeff, how about at the National Coordinator for Health Information Technology? A lot of activity going on over there. Give us a state of state across the top on where you are introducing AI into that environment.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Luke. So I'm going to give you the kind of vantage point that we've got now. We were recently elevated to an assistant secretary position within the Department of Health and Human Services as part of a reorganization, which really positions us to help coordinate across all of HHS for AI policy and AI deliverables within and across the department. So, I think it's important for everyone to kind of realize, the HHS is a vast department. We've got roughly 80,000 employees across 14 staff divisions and 13 operating divisions. And each of these divisions have a mission to enhance health and well-being for all Americans. And each of these divisions is intensively looking at the use and application of artificial intelligence to deliver on these missions. So, for example, at the NIH, we're responsible for discovering fundamental knowledge and the nature and behavior of living systems and the application of this knowledge to enhance health, lengthen life, and reduce illness and disability. And so the NIH is, of course, looking at modeling and looking at drug development and looking at clinical trials and how we can facilitate more and better biomedical research. At the CDC, we're responsible for leveraging science and data to protect the public's health by detecting and responding to new and emerging health threats and promoting health and safe behaviors. And of course, at the CDC, they're exploring new applications of AI and ML for public health, such as forecasting trends in opioid overdose mortality and using natural language processing to understand and anticipate foodborne illness and outbreaks. And then, of course, at the FDA, they're responsible for safety, efficacy, and safety of drugs and medical devices. And they've been working diligently to kind of rethink how they can ensure the safety and efficacy of medical devices, given that software as a medical device is becoming more and more prevalent. I think they've authorized nearly 1,000 medical devices at this point that utilize AI and ML technology, and that presents new and unique challenges for that group. And so generally speaking, we're looking to more efficiently deliver HHS benefits and services, such as at the Social Security Administration, who's looking to expedite disability claims that are likely to be awarded. CMS, of course, is looking to identify trends and patterns of fraud, waste, and abuse across the millions of Americans who receive coverage, either through Medicaid or Medicare. And really, we're trying to, at ASTP, the Assistant Secretary for Technology Policy, we're really trying to kind of staff up and organize. We've recently announced hiring for a Chief Technology Officer, a Chief AI Officer, and that will add to our existing Chief Data Officer and capacities. And really, we'll be looking to set policy and strategy across the department for AI, which, as I just demonstrated, is far from homogenous, but actually really exciting time within the healthcare, health delivery, biomedical, public health space, as well as human services space, to really leverage generative AI and predictive AI to deliver on those missions.
Incredible broad mission there with a lot of incredibly smart patriots there that are fighting the good fight, providing healthcare capabilities, et cetera, across our nation. So we really do appreciate that. Adam, how about at Red Hat? You all have an opportunity you're right in the thick of it. You have an opportunity to see this from a broad spectrum, both in the private sector and the public sector. Give us a top line as to what do you seeing? What's the movement look like right now, Adam?
Yeah, ever evolving, Luke. And, the state of the art continues to sort of press forward. And so, we see a lot of organizations and a lot of agencies looking at building models. And these are very interesting workloads for Red Hat, because as we know, this model development, model building activity is often happening on Kubernetes. So we know that ChatGPT in 2021 announced they used over 7,500 nodes of Kubernetes to build ChatGPT. We also know that it's cost them $3 billion to build that ChatGPT large language model, which is a tremendous amount of money to be spending on this type of development, probably something that doesn't scale for all of our federal customers. I'm just going to assume that money's not there. And so what we find is that a lot of customers are looking to buy an off-the-shelf large language model and then possibly augment that with their own knowledge or their own data. This can be for predictive AI or for generative AI as well. And so where we're seeing a lot of evolution is in retrieval augmented generation. And so this is the idea that I can take some quantity of content within my enterprise, parse this into the large language model, put it into a graph database, and then make that available to augment the answers that the large language model is going to give us. So this is really interesting to us. It requires a lot of fast CPU, obviously, a lot of fast storage, but the realities are it's nowhere near the cost of building your own model. So we're seeing a lot of progress there. We're seeing a lot of progress. Obviously, we're owned by IBM. IBM is a huge pusher in the AI world as well. They're building smaller, more efficient language models like Granite that we think are going to be as effective. And so where I see things going, I think a lot of agencies are going to be moving some of that computation back into the data center, doing some of that work themselves rather than in the cloud, as well as obviously using third-party services. So it's an exciting time, and it's great to see sort of everybody moving forward together.
Fantastic. I love it. AI as a service. Rajmi, Deloitte, absolute global superpower. You all are known for your expertise in the AI and data environment. You're right in the thick of it. Tell us, what are you seeing across the spectrum here?
Thanks, Luke. So like everyone's saying, it's a really exciting time for AI. And I think the way, we're seeing multiple applications for AI, and we're helping and really looking at this in two ways. So the first is how we help our clients transform their businesses using AI, right? So what we're looking at is, how do we build our capabilities to support that? So for example, what we are, like I lead out for our federal healthcare sector, I lead our AI Foundry development, where we're building a variety of Gen AI applications in different domain areas. And the idea is basically that we build in different data sources, we look at different LLMs to build AI applications focused on Gen AI to help our clients see the art of the possible. For example, we've built an EHR chatbot, right, which enables the user to interact with EHR data that can be vast in different formats in an easier manner. The other thing we're looking at is how we transform internally, right? Gen AI has the power to transform consulting altogether. So again, another example is Sidekick, which is our virtual assistant. So practitioners across Deloitte have access to that, and it can help with daily tasks like market research, summarization of documents. And that really is a tool for us to use internally because we understand how we're going to have to change as well. The other thing we're looking at is code generation, right? So how Gen AI can help with automation of that, producing some of it, automated testing, things like that. So again, really looking at it from two angles, how we change ourselves and how we help our clients. But it's a very exciting time.
Right. And I think it's a good catch on the internal use, right? It's the organizations that create a mastery of the internal use of this capability are certainly going to be the ones that are out in front as far as delivering services to the public square and certainly these various agencies and departments. So we really do appreciate that. Nick, how about at Pure Storage? We're not only storing all the data, we've gotten a lot more sophisticated. Tell us about it.
Well, thank you, Luke, and it's very good to be with everybody today. I really appreciate it. We live in an interesting spot in the entire artificial intelligence ecosystem in that we're the foundational data service layer. So you've got all of this data, you've got all of these processes, you've got your models. In fact, we work rather closely with Red Hat and other Kubernetes-oriented vendors to enable our customers and enable the industry to obtain maximum leverage over that data. So our progress has been focused around how do we enable data services and data management at scale, because as we've all learned, AI does data at a scale that boggles the imagination. All of our expectations about how IT behaves in this kind of a superscalar, hyper-parallelized environment and get fundamentally amplified with this kind of application. So our progress is focused on, improving the critical foundational data services for enabling AI at scale. And to that end, we've doubled and doubled again the density of our storage media to 75 and 150 terabytes per device. And that gives customers the opportunity to have as much as 30 petabytes of data on tap. And of course, we're working to deliver our 300 terabyte devices in the near future, which will double that again. So you'll be looking at somewhere close to 120 petabytes of data to feed your hungry AI models. We've also increased our network bandwidth fourfold to ensure that AI models and processes can take maximum advantage of the data for training and operational use. And we've expanded our partnerships with leading AI companies such as NVIDIA, Cisco, Red Hat, Meta, CoreWeave, to ensure we deliver tightly integrated capability and simple ways to adopt advanced AI technologies in our customer space. And then finally, we're delivering AI capability within our own portfolio of systems to enable customers to really autonomously manage the data environment. So everything from levels of activity across the data space to the health of the machines, the security of the data. Our AI Copilot, our Fusion platform, these are all designed to enable, as we've always said, self-driving data. And that enables people to focus on actually the challenge of delivering on AI capability rather than trying to wrestle the infrastructure into submission to make that happen. So we're experiencing tremendous benefit from the implementation of AI, as well as the partnership with the leading AI companies across the market space and within the government.
Yeah, I was just going to say amen on that. I know everybody on this call and everyone listening to this show deeply appreciates the tight integration. So you can take that off the table and they can focus on the use rather than trying to plug it all together and make it work. We really do appreciate that. We're going to take a short break and we'll be right back. You're listening to the Federal Executive Forum on Federal News Network. Welcome back to the Federal Executive Forum on Federal News Network. We are talking about artificial intelligence. We're going to talk about specific use cases. Dave, I'm going to throw it over to you at NASA. You cited a couple. I know there's a lot of just absolutely fantastic things going on there. You want to shine the light on another one?
Yeah, I can do that, Luke. Thank you. I'll talk about another one in the area of air traffic management. So we're certainly using AI as it relates to looking at the national air traffic system and looking at capacity opportunities to increase capacity, but also efficiency. So if you think about routing of air traffic and you think about, looking at all of the history of air traffic and the delays and the on-time arrivals and the flow patterns and so on, putting that all into a model, learning from that, and then being able to recommend departure times between a departure location and a destination that would optimize and reduce the potential of a delay. So we have that data. We're actually doing experimentations right now with the FAA using this work. And what we're finding is that, let's take logistics, for example, where we move a lot of packages using aircraft. We're able to move more packages more efficiently in fewer flights because of the optimization in the routing. And of course, that has a climate benefit as well. So when you think about, fewer aircraft traveling, less fuel consumption, less carbon emissions, other environmental impacts, and so on, cost implications. So those efficiencies are now starting to be returned within the National Air Traffic System. Also understanding flow patterns as it relates to, it's one thing to understand all of the commercial traffic flow because it's all on a flight plan. But then also, how do you deal with, let's say, some of the general aviation flow that is not necessarily on a flight plan? The pilot that might go out with their Cessna and just make a general flight from location A to B, and what does that look like, and what are those trends, and how might that affect the system? And then, of course, there's a lot of UAS systems that are starting to emerge. So there's a dire need for us to look at our air traffic control system, modernize it, and be able to accommodate the increases that we expect between both aircraft that are piloted and those that are unpiloted.
Interesting dynamic there, and I'm sure at some point there'll be much more autonomous type flying too, and that gets into a whole nother dimension. So we appreciate you being able to pack as many aircraft in there as you can. Rajmi, let's talk about use case at Deloitte. You're striped across a whole bunch of different agencies. You cited a couple of use cases. Can you focus on one that you'd like to highlight that's really sort of enlightened a functionality or a capability at one of these agencies?
Sure. In my role, I have the privilege of supporting the Department of Veteran Affairs. I support them on a variety of projects in the data and AI space. One is with the Veteran Experience Office. So they have made great progress in really tracking the veteran experience, how you measure that, and how you improve veteran engagement. The VA serves over 9 million veterans a year, so you can imagine it's a highly complex organization in terms of the benefits that they provide, the healthcare they provide. And so what we're doing is we're working with them to set up the data pipelines to get a 360 view of the veteran. So that entails you really, setting up the data so we can, look at data and that's structured and unstructured, and really get views of the veteran from survey data to benefits data to demographic data. and then use that to build a variety of AI and analytical data products that are being used to better serve the veterans. So really understanding their background, what their needs are, and then using that to create like a uniform experience across the various interactions that veterans have with the VA. And that's even broader than just the veteran, right? It's obviously the families, survivors. So, it's a really great use of AI to really figure out exactly, how you make sure veterans get the benefits that they're entitled to in the easiest possible manner.
A fantastic use case of a customer experience, if you will, a veteran's experience. And we certainly do appreciate that. We all have a soft spot for the veterans. So thank you very much for all that you all are doing there to enhance that experience for them. Speaking of customer experience, Randy, I'm going to go up to you and let's talk about the IRS. Who knew that the IRS has a mobile capability, IRS to go? I know you've got a lot of other capabilities that you all are looking at as far as the use of AI and enhancing the functionality of IRS. Give us a use case.
Yeah, so thanks, Luke. So I agree. And one of the things that we're doing right now—
You had no idea I'm so excited about the IRS, were you?
Exactly. One of the things the commissioner has asked us to do is look at what we can do with generative AI to support taxpayer experience. And so right now we have a number of use cases that we're looking at that are related to improving the work of our customer service representatives, our account management team, to be able to speed up the activities that they're doing to directly support taxpayers or the processing of tax returns in ways that are meaningful to taxpayers. And so, I think one of the things that we did in looking at generative AI use cases is we had to understand the maturity of that technology, understand where it was safe to begin to do experimentation, how it was appropriate to do that experimentation, but we still wanted to deliver value. As we were experimenting with generative AI, we wanted to pick use cases to do things that were of value to the taxpayer. And so one example is in the area of amended returns. So the IRS receives amended returns. The way that those are structured is set up to be easy for the taxpayer. So the amount of information the taxpayer has to provide to the IRS to amend their submitted return is not significant. On the IRS side, that presents a burden to our account management team. There's a certain amount of research that has to be done to understand the context in which that taxpayer is asking for an amendment to their return. And all that work has to be done in compliance with, as you would expect, some very complicated rules. And so one of the things that we're looking at with generative AI is how can we provide a tool that will help those account managers to understand the context of the questions the taxpayer are asking with respect to the sort of 70,000 pages of rules that we have in terms of the tax code, the IRS internal policy manuals, to be able to more rapidly speed that process of doing that research in a way that's compliant with policy, but gets us to the answer to the taxpayer faster.
Wow, is it really 70,000?
Yeah, it's on the order of 70,000 pages.
Okay, certainly an AI opportunity there. We certainly do appreciate that. Interesting use case there. Nick, how about at Pure Storage? You're kind of on the back end, stitching all this stuff together, making this available so that as these various agencies and SIs, et cetera, can provide these capabilities. Give us a use case that you'd like to, that you're proud of, that you'd like to highlight.
Sure, Luke, thank you. So as you said, we wind up being the foundation on which a lot of people build their data platforms and develop their AI platforms. And we've done this for a very long time, really for the last 6 years when we first partnered with NVIDIA to develop the artificial intelligence ready infrastructure. And we've seen that expand into places where customers are very often using us, not realizing that they're using us. And that's sort of the hard part about being the tires on the Ferrari. Nobody notices, because we're not Italian Racing Red. But, when you take a look at what we've done with Meta and really powering their AI research supercluster, or at least providing the data services with that environment, or CoreWeave, who's delivering AI as a service capability for the general public, or what we've done with the Navy, where they deployed our artificial intelligence ready infrastructure to deliver AI as a service capability across the entire Department of the Navy. These kinds of things are where people have come to understand what we've long advocated. Data is fundamentally different in these environments. All right. The technologies of the 20th century that got us here will not propel us through the 21st century and enable us to achieve the aspirations that we have for the implementation of artificial intelligence across our nation, particularly within our government. Randy hit the nail on the head. Can you read 70,000 pages worth of tax policy, ingest it, understand it, and leverage it? It might take you an entire lifetime to do it. It takes an AI 5 seconds, provided it can actually read that fast. And that's driven by how fast can you feed it data. And that's where we're at. That's what we do. That's our specialty. We create an integrated data portfolio or an integrated data environment, enabling agencies to take advantage of the data that they have within their own repositories as well as externally, and creating that seamless data environment of shared service cloud environment to on-premises capability, and leveraging all of the data wherever it is to deliver the outcomes that they're hoping to obtain or achieve. And we've been incredibly successful across pretty much every knowledge area, whether it's healthcare and medical science, research and development, air and space, defense and national security, agriculture, everywhere that it is an area of endeavor of human cognition. We've enabled people to accelerate the adoption of advanced machine learning. And that's what we're going to continue to do. That is, I could do success cases, but we only have a few minutes in this segment. So thanks, Luke.
And listen, we really do appreciate it. You all introducing this technology at the right time so that we can accelerate these use cases and implement these capabilities across these government agencies. So we certainly do appreciate everything that Pure Storage is doing. Jeff, we think about, you just top-lined all these monster operating elements inside of HHS. Would you like to give us a use case that you'd like to highlight in one of those areas?
Yeah, sure. So, I think it should be emphasized that at HHS, we are a department of AI optimists, and there's really a growing recognition across the department that AI can have profoundly important impacts on our missions. And
I love that term, AI optimist.
Yeah, well, and I think we've got about 160 or so use cases in the inventory, and we're actively going through a refresh, and I suspect that number will increase substantially.
Probably change.
But I really want to highlight a policy that comes from my home program at ASTP, which is with the ONC Health IT Certification Program. So if you're not familiar, the ONC Health IT Certification Program is a voluntary program that regulates electronic health records, or EHRs, used by more than 96% of our nation's hospitals and roughly 80% of our nation's office-based physicians. And our program adopts standards and discrete outcome-focused functionality requirements referred to as certification criteria that support foundational capabilities across healthcare delivery. And these include capabilities to send and receive clinical documents, capabilities to prescribe pharmaceuticals electronically, capabilities to connect patients to their data via portal or standardized API and mobile apps, as well as capabilities to support clinical decision-making. And really, over the last several years, we've seen an explosion in the use of AI in healthcare delivery, and the digitization of health data using certified EHRs has played a central role. Certified EHRs generate, access, exchange, and use data that is necessary to power AI applications, and they provide a means to deliver predictive and generative AI outputs to clinician users. So as I mentioned, we're AI optimists, and on the surface, these are all really positive developments. Numerous tools have emerged, such as those that predict the onset of sepsis, the likelihood of cardiovascular disease, tools that anticipate hospital readmissions. And these tools can predict whether a patient is even likely to show up for an appointment and translate clinical visits into billable clinical notes. So these are all important developments. However, we noticed and confirmed over the course of a multi-month exploration into the use of AI in healthcare that there are widespread concerns regarding unfair bias, inaccuracies, and safety. And these concerns were inhibiting the widespread use of predictive decision support tools. Clinicians simply didn't trust these tools and were concerned about AI being a black box. They had no way to understand or judge the quality of predictive decision support tools, and we saw this as a major barrier. And unfortunately, researchers over the last several years have demonstrated that all of these sorts of tools are capable of bias and inaccuracies, negatively impacting patients based on their race or based on their gender, and in ways, importantly, that could have been prevented. So in January of this year, ASTP finalized first of its kind transparency requirements for AI and ML-enabled decision support tools that are supplied as part of certified developers' products. Think of this policy as a nationwide mandate for nutrition facts labels for AI and ML-enabled decision support tools. These requirements establish a nationwide baseline of information that can help clinicians understand how an AI or ML-enabled decision support tool was designed, developed, tested, evaluated, and should be used within a given clinical care environment, whether that's the ICU or pediatrics or cardiology or pulmonology or et cetera. So this policy requires certified developers to give users access to kind of 31 data points, metrics, and descriptions for each predictive and generative decision support tool they supply as part of their products. And this will allow users to determine whether the tool is fair, appropriate, valid, effective, and safe for use on their patients. The policy also requires developers to apply risk management practices to these decision support tools, as well as publish summary information of how data are acquired, managed, and used for these tools. So we're pretty excited about this as a way to both underscore our excitement for the use of these tools in this field, but also ensure that these tools can be used responsibly and safely. And we think that transparency is going to be prerequisite for any additional policy that the department undertakes, whether it's at the FDA or whether it's elsewhere within the department.
I think you used a key word there, transparency, and I love the reference to the label there. So hats off to you all, and hopefully that same capability can be reused in other departments and agencies. Adam, how about at Red Hat? Give us a use case that you'd like to cite in regards to enabling this capability in an agency.
Yeah, so I think whether it be within the federal government or whether it be in our commercial customers, we're finding
Good catch.
that everyone is trying to figure out how to marshal all of the resources around AI. So I'll give you an example. You know, when you start working on AI, you've got a developer who says, "Oh, I need a GPU in my workstation. I'm going to need that in order to start building this thing." And then suddenly you've got an army of people clamoring for GPUs in their workstation. So you call your favorite GPU or CPU vendor, and you're like, "Hey, I'm going to need something bigger, right? I'm going to need a bigger boat." And as you
call your CIO, who then calls the vendor.
Right, exactly. If you're lucky, sometimes they don't call the CIO, which is a worse situation. You've been there, and so then you end up with almost this like large timeshare machine that you've got to figure out who's going to get time on the GPU array so that they can start doing all this. And we see this as an emerging issue, sort of on both sides, as I mentioned, and so we're working very, very tightly with folks like NVIDIA and Intel and Pure and others to make sure that we can help sort of divide those resources up and make them available to developers. Because the reality is, you know, this workflow that developers have to go through to enable this technology to really serve the mission, which is what this is all about, it's very, very intensive. And the faster we can get them through that workflow to the resources that they need in the time that they need them, the better off they're going to be. So when you're thinking about partitioning up all of those GPU resources and others, we've got some solutions around that. The other thing I'll talk a little bit about is everybody's talking about AI for their mission, but also there's a big workforce enablement part of this as well. And getting the end users comfortable with AI, but also getting tools for AI and that use AI into the hands of your end users. And so Red Hat has been working diligently to build AI into the capabilities of our product. So, I jokingly mentioned to our Red Hat Enterprise Linux product manager that I wanted to see an AI prompt into the bash command prompt, like the most low level thing a technician is going to use in Linux. And he said, yeah, that's coming. So we're going to have generative AI all the way from the lowest level for your sysadmins and technicians, all the way through to Ansible and OpenShift and the other products, so that your system administrators and site reliability engineers can start to build automation and other capabilities faster to start solving those problems. And as Nick mentioned, spend a lot less time wrangling that infrastructure and a lot more time solving the mission.
Good catch on the awareness and enablement of the technology with the users, and something that certainly Jeff pointed out as well. All right, we're going to take a short break. We'll be right back. You're listening to the Federal Executive Forum on Federal News Network. Welcome back to the Federal Executive Forum on Federal News Network. We are talking about AI and machine learning. We're getting into priorities, and I wanted to start with you, Jeff. Number one priority for you as you're focusing on this capability this year.
All right. So yeah, I think the number one priority we've got is publishing and executing against the HHS AI strategy. As I think most of my federal colleagues are also working on, the executive order from last October, 14110 required agencies to produce these AI strategies. And of course, we're looking across the portfolio of agencies and offices at HHS and pulling together a bunch of different ideas. And so I anticipate early in the new year, we'll have an HHS-wide AI strategy. And this will cover everything from research and discovery to public health, including biosafety and security. We'll also focus, obviously, on healthcare and human services delivery, as well as drug and device regulation, and then looking at critical infrastructure and cybersecurity, as well as internal operations. I think in terms of additional aspects that we'll be looking at, we'll be staffing up the Office of the Chief AI Officer, establishing AI policies and strategies, as well as internal governance policies and risk management practices for our use internally at HHS, and then looking to coordinate across HHS, sectors. So whether that's public health or healthcare delivery, really trying to coordinate AI-related activities across the department, as well as coordinate AI talent acquisition and training.
Fantastic. A very powerful technology. Need to get all those things in place. Rajmi, number one priority for Deloitte this year as you're focusing on this, the demand signal coming in.
I think from our perspective, it's really building the tools and frameworks that are going to accelerate our clients' journey in this space, right? So that whether that's as simple as, a lab to help brainstorm what kind of use cases are possible, what a roadmap looks like for that, or frameworks in terms of how you operationalize AI. And of course, we're talking a lot about trustworthy AI and how you really make sure you have the right pillars to make sure when you're deploying AI, it's done in an ethical manner. And, as we've all talked about, this space is growing so quickly in terms of technology, methodologies, tools. It's also making sure we're enabling our workforce so that we can support our clients in the best possible way.
Really do appreciate that. Randy, top priority for the IRS this year.
Yeah, so it's become clear that being able to do generative AI successfully requires the ability to do experimentation. And IRS information technology is just not set up to be experimental. We're very focused on risk management, delivery of a consistent process year over year. And so there's a lot of infrastructure that we need to build to be able to do generative AI at scale. We need to norm on an architecture quickly. Even as we're doing current set of experimentation, we need to start focusing on how we're going to deliver a similar set of capabilities to all these use cases to enable them. We need to look at our policies and processes and make sure that they're supportive of what we need to be able to do for generative AI. We need the right talent base to be able to do this effectively. And then even the right contracts. So some of our contract work may need to be able to be modified to be able to support the kind of experimental work that we need to be able to do.
A lot of elements you need to put in place to be successful using this capability, no doubt. So appreciate everything you're doing. Nick, top priority Pure Storage this year, AI.
Well, that's a great question, Luke. We've created the foundational layer for high performance data and the tools to work seamlessly and smoothly with that data across large distributed organizations. So we're continuing to deliver our next generation capabilities to enable customers to address the explosion in data growth that AI engenders and to enable them to leverage that data with flexibility, performance, and efficiency. So this is all in service of delivering a seamless, fully integrated data capability that delivers security, simplicity, scalability, sustainability, and speed affordably and accessibly for our customers. Right? It's really not about the cost of IT anymore. It's actually really about the cost of data and the cost of leveraging that data. And the faster and more efficiently we can enable that, the more successful agencies and organizations can be in their iteration and implementation of AI, in their experimentation. Getting to tomorrow without breaking the budget. These are all critical capabilities. And that's really our responsibility to our customers and to the industry at large, is how do we push the state of the art of data forward while keeping costs manageable?
Keeping the costs down, allowing these agencies to operate at the speed of mission. We certainly do appreciate that. Dave, top priority for NASA for you and your organization this year?
Yeah, I would offer it's a similar theme. It's really about equipping the workforce. And we've talked about offering those tools, and in particular, offering tools that are within the NASA security boundary, the NASA.gov security boundary, so people can start not worrying about data leakage and actually have the access to the tooling and then start to learn to use those tools. And that means a whole ecosystem of things. That means the test environments, the data prep, understanding what AI-ready data really is, understanding prompt engineering, and then actually having access to the tools within the NASA.gov environment to work with. I think there's a huge dividend by equipping the workforce with access to these tools because great efficiencies will be gained, and it's an order of magnitude higher than, let's say, any particular single use case. As it relates to our space mission, our exploration, our aeronautics, our science missions, those groups are already working very effectively with AI. And, I know they will continue to do that. NASA has a very trailblazing culture. We're used to technology. We're used to understanding how to risk manage new technology. We have very, very rigorous risk management processes as part of our systems engineering procedures and our risk management procedures. The science community is very effective at the checks and balances. There's it's the peer review on scientific outcomes. Anytime we use AI in science, we publish the data, we publish the models, we make it all available so that others can repeat the work. So really, it's equipping the workforce and really exploiting the full value of generative AI and gaining that return, the efficiencies that can be gained, and freeing the workforce writ large to apply some of the time and energy towards other types of tasks instead of some of the wrangling work that we talked about earlier.
Really do appreciate that and look forward to all the things that NASA is going to be doing in the future. Adam, Red Hat, top priority for you all.
Sure. So, Red Hat's mission is really to be the platform where AI is developed and then deployed. And so we've worked with all of the agencies here to help them develop and deploy their workloads all over the place, whether it's within your data center, whether it's within the hospital with the clinician, or whether it's in space. We've been there with all of you. And so for Red Hat, we're going to continue to be that platform where those workloads can be developed, deployed, and continue to deliver on your mission. I think the other side of the coin for us is this. There's been a lot of talk about transparency. There's been a lot of talk about the scientific method and how you publish things and make them available so people understand what they're using. We're very interested in tracking the evolving definition of open AI as opposed to open source AI, right? There is a distinction and a difference that's coming there. We're very interested in making sure that models that we provide and that we ship are indemnified against things like copyright and other issues that have already been mentioned here, and making sure that we have annotation and understanding of where data is coming from when it's delivered to that end user. So it's not as much of the black box as has already been mentioned. So that sort of spectrum of making sure that we understand AI when it's being delivered is definitely key for us and something we'll continue to focus on.
Really do appreciate that. A very important aspect. All right, we're going to have to wrap it up. We always like to finish with fast forwarding 2 or 3 years, a little bit of a glimpse into the future. Nick, we're going to start with you at Pure Storage. What are we going to be talking about 2 to 3 years from now? What's coming out of the lab? What's the vision here?
Now, this is something I'm really excited to share because we've talked about this in public. And earlier this year, we launched our 75 terabyte direct flash modules. This December, we're going to be shipping 150 terabyte direct flash modules. We're going to double that again over the course of the next dev cycle of 12 to 18 months. And then we've already stated very clearly that we intend to deliver 1.2 petabyte direct flash modules. That's a U2 SSD sized device capable of storing 1.2 petabytes. Why? The explosive growth of data, particularly when you take a look at something like RAG, that'll take a petabyte of data and turn it into 10 petabytes of data. These technologies are utterly critical. As I said earlier, the technologies of the 20th century will not propel us to success in the 21st. So we're going to have to fundamentally change how we manage and leverage data at the foundational layer, at the infrastructure layer, in order to really see the fulfillment of the promise of artificial intelligence. To that end, we're doing everything, increasing capacity density, network bandwidth, throughput, performance, but most importantly, simplicity and energy efficiency. I mean, we touched on that, and energy utilization and consumption in IT is a real thing, and it's becoming a strategically significant factor for the United States of America.
Energy, the new oil potentially in some aspects, certainly electricity. Rajmi, how about at Deloitte? You talked about the veterans and that enhanced experience. What's that experience going to look like 2 to 3 years from now? Or is Deloitte going to be sort of taking that capability across to the other agencies and different people in the public at large that use these goods and services can expect these type of, tell me what's going to happen 2 to 3 years from now. I'm excited about this.
Yeah, I mean, I think, we're already working with a lot of agencies, that are represented here to do that. But I think in, 2 to 5 years, we're going to sort of see Gen AI and AI more seamlessly integrated with all processes, right? So I think definitely to start off with more on the back end, right? Like I think there's more comfort. We talked a lot about, user acceptance of this kind of technology. So it's going to start there. But, Jeff talked a lot about clinical decision support. I think that's a huge area for growth. There's already a lot being done with image analysis and things like that. But I think there's a tremendous opportunity for growth there that touches the end, citizen. And I think, finally, like you're saying, right, like really fundamentally changing how the government deals with the public, right? Like, there's so many services available, but they're difficult to navigate. And so, I think Gen AI definitely has the power to really create personalized communications with constituents so that they understand what they're entitled to and make that, seamless, like I said. I think the other thing that we're going to need to see, right, is the balance that we've been talking about. Like, technology is a piece of this, but what's really hard is the work organizational aspects, right? So the integration between the movement of the technology and really making sure where, end users are comfortable with this technology, that we are making sure that whatever we're producing is in an ethical manner, and people's data is, really protected, especially when we're talking about the healthcare space. And then also, like I said before, really making sure there's integration with the workflows. Otherwise, it's just going to be great technology that sits on the shelf. So to me, in the next 2 to 5 years, we will see that seamless, but all those things had to happen to come together: the technology, ethics, workforce, etc.
Certainly looking forward to that. Adam, at Red Hat, 2 to 3 years from now, what are you expecting to be delivering to your customers to enable these capabilities?
Yeah, I think one of the most unexpected things that people are going to begin doing is really sharing and collaborating their work products of AI. And if I told you, well, NASA and NOAA, they're probably going to collaborate on weather data, you'd say, well, yeah, of course, that makes a lot of sense. But if I said, well, what if the IRS and their constituents, like the big banks, were collaborating on fraud identification? Like, that potential is absolutely there.
Mhm.
But the IRS doesn't want to give up all of their data and give it over to the banks. The banks don't want to take all of their data and give it over to the IRS. So the idea of federated learning, the idea that the IRS is going to be able to take their data, create a model, learn something from it, pass that over to a bank, let the bank contribute to that model, and then contribute to it back. And Randy, I don't mean to call you out on this, but this is the reality of where we are going to be with federated learning. The level of cooperation that we're going to see across entities to build better and smarter models. Right now, we're working in such silos that are so limited. The efficacy of what we're building is quite small. When we begin having federated learning and allow people to collaborate on that learning, it is going to be tremendous. And so that's really exciting to me, the idea that we will see that level of collaboration. I know today it's very difficult to imagine such a thing, but I very strongly believe we will get there.
Well, I think you just described a glimpse of the future there, and it's very interesting. Jeff, 2 to 3 years from now, if I'm a clinician, am I going to be comfortable with this environment? You've given me all the labels, and I'm just enjoying the use of this capability and doing what I do as a clinician. Where do we think we're going to be 2 to 3 years from now?
Well, I certainly hope we will have been able to inject more trust into the system.
Mhm.
But I think, within 2 to 5 years, 2 to 3 years, I would fully expect that across HHS operations that we've integrated, and I think, Rashmi, you've hit the nail on the head with that notion of integrating generative AI in a way that fits workflows. And I think internally, we'll make excellent strides towards that. I think also, though, that over the next several months and into the next 2 to 3 years, we'll look at HHS policies and programs and try and figure out how we can support AI activities and investments in the private sector, within industry and academia and the nonprofit sector. We really do need partners across industry, nonprofit, and academic sectors to help implement a strategy that really catalyzes health AI innovation and adoption, promotes trustworthy AI development and use, and really democratizes AI technologies and resources. So it's not only those institutions that have the resources and the know-how that can benefit from these tools, which I think is going to be a primary challenge that we face ongoing into the future. And so, we are really looking at how to establish a framework of distributed accountability and a framework that will allow these tools to be developed in ways that are fair, appropriate, valid, effective, and safe, as well as used in ways that clinicians and nurses and physicians can trust. And so kind of looking at this from what can HHS do within its policies and programs, but also how can HHS support the sector and the spaces within the private industry that we regulate, I think is going to be a daunting but exciting challenge for us.
Really looking forward to that, and appreciate all the activity that you all are doing over there to keep the checks and balances in place. Dave, 2 to 3 years from now, or what are we going to expect? Are we going to have less air traffic controllers? Are we going to have one pilot in a commercial aircraft? What can we expect to see? I know those are sort of lofty goals and very scary ones. Let's just start with more density and landing planes, right?
Well, I think that I wouldn't speculate about, it wouldn't be my place to speculate about how many pilots will be in commercial airliners. I think there's certainly going to be capacity enhancements, routing enhancements in our air traffic, in our national airspace system. Where I would tend to go with the question as it relates to AI and what do I see in the future as it relates to NASA is really two things. I see an acceptance of AI as the digital assistant, that capability that is going to enable every member of the workforce to be able to be more effective with their time. And think about this, there's a bit of a human behavior component to how we interact with any new technology. I have a colleague at NASA, a digital transformation officer, who often talks about watches. And many of us wear some type of smartwatch. But the analogy would go something like, if you wear a smartwatch and all you use it for is to tell time, you really haven't fully benefited from all the capability that's, on your wrist. And I think generative AI is going to be like that as well. And there's going to be a journey where people will start to now look to that generative AI capability as a digital assistant in every part of what they do on any given day. I recently prepared our CIO for a presentation with a very senior official from the NSC. And in doing so, I did a little bit of research using generative AI. And I did in 15 minutes what it would have taken me 2 to 3 hours to do otherwise. I was able to pull very relevant excerpts from various different publicly available content. I was able to reference all of that content, put it into a Word document and ship it off to them. And I would say that was literally 15 minutes. So, think about taking that kind of gain in efficiency across an entire workforce for an agency like NASA in so many of the support functions. Think about the citizen data scientist, the citizen developer, and the democratization that was talked about earlier as it relates to these capabilities, but more so the acceptance of them as part of what we do, and a confidence in reliability, and then confidence in ourselves to be able to responsibly use the technology as part of our work. There's one other aspect at NASA, and that is, we have a lot of edge use cases. So we will see edge use cases in, let's say, human space travel. When you think about an astronaut going to Mars, there are blackout periods in communication during that very long journey. And let's say there's a medical emergency. How does that astronaut deal with that medical emergency? So we're doing research right now based on a large repository of astronaut medical data. And we would put that in an edge use case on a space vehicle so that an astronaut can help diagnose and respond to a medical incident during perhaps one of those blackout periods. So there are a lot of very unique cases at NASA, but in all, I would categorize so many of them as some form of digital assistance to the workforce, whether you're an astronaut, whether you're, let's talk about the air traffic control system, or whether you're an accountant or a human resources officer doing, work in support of the agency.
Really do appreciate that and everything that NASA's doing for mankind. Randy, how about at the IRS? 2 to 3 years from now, I know customer experience is a big part of the Reduction Act activity. What can we expect 2 to 3 years from now? What's it going to be like when we're filing our taxes? Are we going to see a big difference?
Yeah, so I think, Luke, definitely, I think I'm going to double down on what Dave said, really, because I think virtual assistance is the sweet spot for this technology. And I think you're going to see it everywhere in government. I think it's going to show up in workflows in spots where there's creative processes within workflows. This is an area where human oversight of these AIs is really powerful. It really works well. I think it's going to be an area where the workforce is going to love the tool. Adoption rate's going to be really high. I think ChatGPT has really kind of fooled us about what the technology is best for. It's not best for sort of interactive chatbots. Generative AI, because of the generative nature of it, is really best at creativity. So creating content within our workflows is where it fits well. It's a great spot for having experts sitting on top of the tech to be able to provide the right governance and oversight and making sure that we've got the right output. I think it's a real litmus test for all of us on how our modernization programs are going, though. To be able to be successful at this vision, government agencies have to be successful at everything we're trying to do around cloud adoption, around improving cybersecurity, around everything we're doing with data. The technology partners that we have on the program today are examples of the kinds of things that we need to be able to integrate to be successful at this vision. I think the other thing this is going to do is to open up a whole bunch of new questions about what does it look like to adopt these generative AI applications at scale? Where are the economies of scale in these architectures? And what do we need to be able to do in the information technology side to make sure we're delivering best value to our agencies in the way that we're architecting these things, because I think that's a really big open question. So government's going to be at the leading edge of learning how to do this in this instance.
Really do appreciate that. And I want to actually thank all of you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us for this program. I'd like to thank all of our sponsors for supporting us on this show. I'd like to thank the good people here at Federal News Network that make our program so successful and enjoyable. And most of all, I'd like to thank the listening audience out there that tune in every month. You've been listening to the Federal Executive Forum, part of the Federal News Network.